Starts on me, make our graves. The kings of colony know no policy, only rape. Now once you fall asleep, it won't bother you what they say. But the kings of colony, while they slaughter, they still complain. We say, please color me, still too solemnly, still too plain. All hail economy, praise the pharmacy, seas in flames. They're buying up Hawaii, and the smoke's not even cleared. Those vultures smelled the fire, and an enterprise appeared. Investment opportunities where melted down communities leave vacant space BlackRock has been lusting for years. The council meets in private, and they don't discuss survivors. Concerns among construction groups are all Lahaina hears. They'll wander through your city with this mocking sword of pity, next to Oprah and her camera crew who tore the Trail of Tears, where footage flows as freely as the stream of liquid steel and the pools of pure aluminum that trickle down your wheels. And Biden's here to say he knows exactly how it feels, cause he had a kitchen fire once and had to miss a meal. And people still believe that piece of shit deserves your vote, like he's not why supplies are being smuggled in by boat, like he's not why our citizens were forced to stay and roast. And he can't unfreeze your funding, folks, cause Azov needs it most. I'll bet my every dollar Biden watched it with a smile. I'll bet he knows the whereabouts of every missing child. He's just the kind of man who lives to trample something tribal, collecting culture's corpses just to throw them on the pile. Like he and all his buddies didn't dream about the day when those who dared defy the donor class were cleared away, when home insurance triples and you can't afford to stay, and your land falls to the hands of those whose windfall fan the flames. The state will take Lahaina and they'll bastardize its name, and tourism will swarm it all the same. You see, the state we left Lahaina shows the ground rules of the game, the planes that in the night ignite the planes. And if questions raised that reckon the potential use of lasers, I suggest you take a closer shave by way of Occam's razor. And if those civilians stood between this country and its gains, then there's really nothing further to explain. Because you may know this already, if you truly know our past, but it ain't the first occasion and it will not be the last, where Americans are kettled in and made to bear the blast, are barricaded in and left for ash. How many in Lahaina now are lying there awake and still can hear the city we left leveled in our wake? They still hear all the people that we let the fire take, instructed from above to stay in place. So look to the horizon, cause a fire comes for you. Desire made incarnate of the power-hungry few, who instructed the police to not let anybody through, to barricade them in, and so they do.
They won't let you go, set you free, or send you home. Wait, please say you know what you need is what you owed, and they won't let you go, set you free, send you home.
I was close enough to smell the fire. Jesus took the wheel and then he kicked me off the ride. I was busy shouting at myself from in the crowd, about to throw down and drag myself outside. I had to give myself the business. When I show myself forgiveness, it goes right between the eyes. Was looking past my shoulder, never focused on the prize. I stalked myself through burning sand the better part of 40 nights. I found myself staring in the mirror, yelling, go into the light. Cause I was in the rear view, staring at the highway, horrified. I was in the road ahead, arms wide, ready to be mummified. Gonna be the fella yelling how he's sick of always betting on his life. I'll also be the guy that brought the dice. Half a dozen chambers and I keep an empty 5. Only needed one to break the ice. Only needed one to clear my mind. Only needed one to stop time.
Wait, please say you know what you need is what you owed, and they won't let you go. Set you free, send you home.
Who are these people?
I'll be the guy that brought the dice.
SWAT team took your neighbor today. Watch them as they walked him away. You told yourself extremists come in all different shapes. Met his eyes and lowered your gaze. Is it too late for us to ever change? When we are collecting the dust of better days, they're always watching us, but we're never safe. We're not meant to be safe, not meant to escape. We aren't meant to wake. Sheriff stopped your daughter today. Pepper sprayed her twice in the face. He must have had good reason if he'd treat her that way. At least that's what they've taught you to say. But is it too late for us to ever change? Once we're collecting the dust of better days, and they're always watching us, but we're never safe. We're not meant to feel safe, not meant to escape. We aren't meant to wake. Feds arrived and had you detained. Said you'd made some posts they want changed. Tased you till you felt like you'd forgotten your name, or life before they had you contained. Life before they had you contained. SWAT team took your neighbor today.
Good morning, Sunday morning. Good morning, Sunday morning.
We're 40 Sunday mornings out from normal, and the world is not the same. Said you waited for a warning, but the warning never came. Don't shine a light in my face.
Nancy gonna cut you a check too late. 2 years after your funeral's paid, 2 years after the grave, she'll be a little stronger for all of the dollars she saved. Watching you wake, watching you cling to your family slipping away. Watch her do nothing but pray. Watch her condemn the Republicans, take them to brunch and then shrug it away. Now watch us be outraged half of a day, then pick a new hero to face our leaders and think they could beat them, playing the game they played since Pelosi had real human blood in her veins. They're all one and the same, sold off stocks and they all maintain that the risk was benign and the virus was tame. Flash forward and 40 Sunday mornings fade, 250,000 people in its wake, and the cruise ship sailed today. So motherfucker, don't shine a light in my face. Wait.
Good morning, Sunday morning. Good morning,
Wait.
Sunday morning.
We're 40 Sunday mornings out from normal, and the world is not the same. Said you waited for a warning, but the warning never came. Don't shine a light in my face. Said you waited for a warning, but the warning never.
Who are these people? 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 Who are these people?
I watched a man decide to stand up for us, and I watched them take him away. So I had to break down your respect for the process, but the process won't be saved.
Hi, I'm Nancy, and I love ice cream.
I enjoy it.
But not as much as watching people forced out of their homes.
I like it better than anything else.
Watching people forced out in the streets to live alone, and knowing that I own every homeless set of bones.
I don't know why, but it seems to agree with me. I have a lot of energy.
It's all more support from my hideous and ill-gotten throne, the weight of which is too much for you to bear alone, which is why you ended up threadbare alone, kicked off your benefits and left to your own. The diner that you worked at was told it could open its doors, but there's no clientele, and it's probably just as well, because half of the staff didn't last, so they can't come to work anymore. You can't expect a corpse to pull itself through the door to flip omelets for $8 an hour anymore. Make your own food, clean your own floors, fake your own news, fill a whole morgue. Get a film crew out front, but don't let them in the doors. Let's keep it frontline heroes, America's soldiers, you know the score. Joe knows the score.
I watched a man decide to stand up for us, and I watched them take him away. So I had to break down your respect for the process, but the process won't be saved.
are these people?
Stop saying the election is so goddamn important and start telling Joe he needs to rein in his supporters. Oh, that's right. Joe can't even rein in his tongue behind his resin molars. Pardon me for asking for some faculties from someone who is vying to control us. The man is not quite yet speechless, but you can bet he's soulless. And if you think he can stop the greatest threat that's ever held a public office, you might be Joe's equal in the ignorance department. But I can guarantee you we will finish what we started. A rabid coalition of activists and politicians, sex workers, educators, artists. Those of us who followed Bernie so close and fell the farthest. Who will not falter until all of us are cared for, regardless of whether it would turn a profit. Now I am not a leader or a teacher or a prophet, but I am here to proudly say today is the day I start campaigning for the role of Speaker of the House that we will build from the bones of the old Congress. And when I say bones, I do not mean framework or stones, I mean literally bones of the old guard keeping us from progress. Tonight's the last dawn before things get their darkest. Tonight's the last dawn before things get their darkest.
Who are these people?
The calm before the storm, the calm before the harvest. Oh, that's right. Oh, that's right.
Who are these people?
Tonight's the last dawn before things get their darkest.
No, Indy left. What is happening here?
To check out IndependentLeft.news.
The Indie News Network.
Indie Left News.
Oh, hey, Indie Left.
IndependentLeft.news. Great work.
Indie Left News.
The IndependentLeft.news.
Independent Left News.
Shout out to Independent Left News. Shout out. Oh, what's up, Independent Left? Indie Friend show.
Thank you, IndependentLeft.news.
The INN. Indy, you're wonderful.
I think Indy was onto something.
Independent News Network, Indie News. Yeah. What's up, Indy, over on Rockfin?
Independent News Network, also known as INN.
Indie Left News.
I don't know if I would have made it through that 3 weeks without Indy, honestly.
No, I was just going to ask Indy.
A huge thank you and shout out to Indie Left.
No, you know what we're doing? We're world building, Indy.
Indie Left News.
You were doing the INN recruiting.
Indie News.
Independent Left News.
Shout out to Independent Left News.
Check out Independent Left News.
At Kennedy News.
I see Indy's in the chat. Hi, Indy. Okay, great.
Who are these people?
Who are these people? Hi, everybody. These are a different look for us tonight. I decided to pretty the place up, and I brought a new co-host for the night. Say hi,
guys.
Shanda. Hi, Shanda. Everybody.
Hi, Indy. Thanks for having me over. I'm so excited for this. I don't normally do Sunday nights, so I get to hang out. A lot of times I'm watching, though. You guys are doing great stuff, so I'm excited to see what you chose for us to talk about.
Yeah, well, this is what we do every Sunday night. You know, I haven't done my little shtick in a while, but you know, How Do We Miss That is a show where we amplify independent journalists, and we're gonna pull a few articles and read through them tonight and talk about what's going on there. And we'll hang out with chat, and then we'll clip these up, and we'll have them for the week. And chat should be awfully familiar, because I think a lot of the chat is also hanging out at Beauty and the Boomer on, first of all, on Saturday nights, but also on the Trailer Park Pundit Show, which you can catch during the week. How often now?
Yes. I recognize a lot of names in here. We go live every Saturday night for Beauty and the Boomer. Of course, I hang out with Oz, my best friend, Boomer. And then I go live Monday mornings at 10 a.m. Pacific for Trailer Park Pundit. And then sometimes I do a Wednesday show. It just depends on how busy I am. But it's just kind of I just collect things from around the internet all week. And we talk about it. We see through the propaganda, we just call it out the way it is. And because of that, I've been doing this for 4 years. 4 years I've been live, and we are one of the most shadow banned, algorithmically suppressed channels ever. Like, they will not let us grow. YouTube will not let us grow. We've taken a ton of strikes over the years. I mean, we've been at jeopardy of losing our channels a couple of times. This is what happens when you tell the truth, though, in our propaganda world.
Yeah, it's happened to all of us. And yeah, you guys have been there. You and Oz have been there, incredibly supportive of all independent media.
That's what we're here for.
And again, among the best of the best. And I will
happily and proudly and proudly say that I'm friends with you guys and to work with you because you are certainly an award-winning podcaster and broadcaster and live streamer.
Aww.
You've been doing this for, like you said, 4 years, telling the truth, consistent, doing it a long time. These are all of Shanda's links. You can get there. I believe this link is in the description. indiemediaawards.substack.com/p, like a post, /Shanda-Master. That's her name. And
thank you for doing that.
So yeah, and again, we recognize all of the best in independent media, from journalists to outlets to live streamers and podcasters, as well as video creators. And again, we only showcase the people that fight for Julian Assange and fight for press freedom and fight the machine and fight corporate profit taking, and gouging us like the way they're doing right now.
Oh, it's so bad. It's so bad. Well, I want to commend you guys at INN, Reeve, Colin, yourself. You guys have done a great job. And this is always what we wanted. Like, why is independent media not working together and getting along behind the scenes? When we came in, it was straight up catfight because a lot of us came from the progressive movement, the Bernie Sanders, some were still inside the Democratic Party. Some were still toting the party line. Like, it was a crazy space to be in. And you guys came in, and yes, I love that you guys you're calling out people that are out there doing it. They're telling the truth. And that's really, at the end of the day, all that matters, right? There's so much that goes on behind the scenes with personalities and people trying to get paid. You know what I'm talking about. But at the end of the day, I'm in a trailer park. I don't give two F's about anything except for telling you the truth of what I've seen from going inside the Democratic Party, coming out, being in politics, being on the ground for the last 8 years in politics. And that's led me to some amazing spaces. Like, I once had dinner with Julian Assange's dad and brother. I mean, if you would have told me, 10 years ago when I was opiate addicted and working in, a minimum wage 9 to 5 to keep a roof over my head, that I would be in those spaces, it would have blown my mind. I would have told you were crazy. But so I just keep going, and I commend you guys because you if you're telling people to look at somebody, you guys better check them out because they're telling you something you need to hear.
Well, thank you, and again, it's been a wild ride here too. Just producing for Tara Reid after all this time.
Tara. I'm talking to Tara so many times. I can't believe that.
That whole thing is just wild in itself. That how that's all come together and how we've continued to support and work with her and how her channels have grown. And
Misty.
And Misty, we got to work on getting you guys your channels up a little bit more for sure. I'd love to see that happening. All right, we're gonna fix that. Good. So yeah, I brought a bunch of stories.
Nice. Let's do it.
Yeah. Let's see. What do we have here? So just in the rundown, we're gonna talk about the heat. Oh my God. So and what workers are doing to try
heat?
Is it hot? Well, you live in Seattle, so you're like in the most comfortable region in the country, I guess. Right,
it's 58 here right now. 58 and partly cloudy.
Sure. Everybody else, it's steaming hot everywhere. Okay. Yeah. Cynic is saying that Jesse wrote Tara's theme song as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Jesse did.
Yeah. And he wrote Doobie Doobie Doo, of course. And we just got Jesse at 4,000 on Twitter. Congrats to Jesse.
Congrats, Jesse. He deserves so much more than that.
Right.
And go follow Jesse on Spotify. It's not just good enough to follow on X or these platforms. You got to follow on the platforms like Bandcamp and Spotify, because that's really where it counts for him, I think.
Yeah, the heat is insane. So we're going to talk about some of the working conditions that people have been dealing with and how they're fighting back against management. We've got stats about the campus protests and showing what percentage of them were actually peaceful versus the ones that didn't have peace and what instigated them. I think we all know. And then talking about we are the baddies, and U.S. elected officials being the worst. Right. And that's a Norman Solomon article. We don't normally bring Norman Solomon, but I liked what he wrote in Common Dreams this week. And then, the UN stating the obvious about Israel and civilians, and we know what's happening there, unaliving people. And then, of course, this is my favorite article, and I was happy to bring you here for it. Independents being underrepresented and the biggest reason that they're finding for that. So the first article that I wanted to get to again is with the heat, and it's a popular resistance article that came from Labor Notes. All right, and so
like popular resistance.
I've been watching in the trailer park for a long time, and you have done a lot of manual labor jobs over the years and worked in a lot of difficult conditions, correct?
Absolutely, 100%. I was a single mother at the age of 18. I raised 3 kids on my own. I took any job and every job that I could get. So yeah, I could attest to this for sure.
Right. So here's what, like, literally we're down to how workers are winning fans, air conditioning, and even heat pay. That's the new one that I was like, ooh, good. That's interesting. Yeah, good is right.
Well, can I tell you, my daughter works for the Dollar Tree, right? She's a manager, like a low-level manager, maybe assistant manager or something. And last summer, it got so hot multiple times, and they refused to put air conditioning in that store that they've had to shut the store down. So for like a week, the only dollar store in our town was shut down because of the heat. Not to mention the amount of merchandise I'm sure they lost, because I've managed multiple convenience stores in my life. And when it gets that hot, all the chocolate, everything melts, you know? So yeah, I totally, my poor daughter, you know, having to work in those type of conditions, just pouring sweat because she stalks all night, you know.
Right.
So yes, I know about this, and it's been something that is affecting us at the bottom for sure, you know.
Yeah. So it says here, if you're dreading summer on the job this year, you're not alone. Every month last summer was, of course, we know the most scorching on world record. Trapped under heat domes, dozens of metro areas busted their longest streaks ever of highs over 100. Oh, all right. Even Reef was saying where he's at, it's 103 the heat index right now. Phoenix afternoons were over 110 for a month straight. Oh my God. On asphalt yards, nearly hot enough to melt, and in some cases they are melting. Bonus-hungry managers forced workers to keep up the usual pace, and of course, we know now that the results were lethal. Wow.
Yeah, it's lethal.
Right, in 2022, right, 2022 is the last year that we have data. 43 U.S. workers lost their lives to heat on the job officially. That's up from 36. Right, officially. That's up from 36 in 2021, and we can expect this cruel number to keep climbing. Well, we know because Texas for a while, you know, got rid of water for workers outside for construction workers. And here's another one: from warehouses to coffee houses to construction sites, workers using solidarity and creative action, even without the protection of a union contract, have won shop floor fights to keep their coworkers safe and cool. Like you said, your daughter's Dollar General, they don't have a union, correct?
No, hell no. Dollar Tree, they're not unionized now.
Right. So the first one they talk about is this Amazon San Bernardino Air Hub, which is one of the largest in the country. You've got Philadelphia, you've got a couple, but San Bernardino is famous. They're outside of LA, right? Outdoor workers on the tarmac had it worst. But even when an indoor worker was taken away in an ambulance last year, that was the final straw. All right. They had an on-site medical department who tried to just say that he had the lingering effects of COVID. Right.
They always blame it on something else. Exactly.
Right. But it wasn't good enough for Pashawn Brown, who literally was administering COVID tests, but she didn't die of COVID because they won't pay her family and they won't take care of her or even acknowledge that she died due to working in an Amazon facility. Gross. All right. And that happened in 2020 at the end of 2020.
Right. I had dinner with the one of the directors of the Amazon warehouse in Seattle right around that time. And he was shocked that I was bringing it up. Like, what do you mean? We have a great safety record at Amazon. I'm not even kidding.
Oh, goodness. Reef saying safe and effective. That's right. My heart swells with pride. That's right. Right. So paramedics told him it was heat stroke. That really kicked us off, and they started organizing. Right. Ana Ortega. It's always the Latina women that start organizing. It was Michelle Valentin Nieves along with Christian Smalls that did it at JFK 8. I God bless you. Seriously, God bless those women for organizing and for saying enough is enough. All right. Workers were starting an organizing drive as Inland Empire Amazon Workers United with support from the Teamsters. Those Teamsters, man, they find themselves everywhere. Look, they've had a 3-year plan to go after Amazon. I don't know if you saw, I was on Hardlands this week talking with Kit. I wrote an article a little after. I raged here last week about the deal that Amazon Labor Union decided to make a deal with the Teamsters. And this is not what this is about, but just on a tangent. And and I got real upset about that because it's a cop-out in a lot of ways. Now, I found out some more data this week that Amazon Labor Union was basically broke, and that they had also, their last filing with the NLRB claimed that they had 0 members. Now, I don't know if that means they had 0 paying members, but
yeah, they
just had a vote of everybody in the warehouse who voted if they had 0 members of Amazon Labor Union for new leadership, or to make the deal with the Teamsters, to align with them.
Amazon be shady with the Teamsters? No way.
It's so weird. All right, and then there's weird stuff with Chris Smalls going back to 2022. We saw him aligning with the Teamsters. We called him out. We wrote an article. We tried to get him. Anyway, check that out. I was on Hardlands. I was raging for 45 minutes. You can watch last week's segment about that. But
I'll have to check it out.
Yeah, and anyone that hasn't yet in the chat for sure. But a lot of you guys I know were here. But anyway, Teamsters, before the day of the ambulance, we had already made our own health and safety committee. Again, the organizing people in the warehouses, because they weren't waiting for the bosses to do it, because they never were going to. And they'd been meeting weekly or biweekly and talking about what was going on in the facility and what are they experiencing and what are the bosses saying to them. They realized that the bosses weren't following their own safety rules, like allowing short breaks, right? Right. If they felt, early symptoms of heat stroke, like these guys just don't care, right? A lot of times
they don't care.
Well, and then here's the excuse. Well, management announces these changes just once and doesn't keep track of who they need to get the information to. So maybe the bosses don't even know. Yeah, they know. I'm sorry, they do know. Right. But after the indoor worker collapsed, the committee realized that enough people were ready to act. We handed out flyers to coworkers on breaks. We marched on the boss with over 20 people. And it was after that they finally installed...
They marched on the boss.
Fans. They got fans. But they wanted more than fans, and they should. They wanted those safety breaks. They kept...
They got pizza, too.
Man. How about a pizza party? That's our big...
You got some fans and a pizza party. Shut up. What are you crying about?
Right? They kept the break room conversations and public flyering. They put in a complaint to the State Job Safety Board, which sent in safety inspectors and it eventually cited the company for unsafe heat exposure. Go figure. And they fined them like $200 a day or whatever, some stupid low number, which Amazon's happy to pay to keep the lights on and the things moving, right? We won breaks and cold drinks. Yay. Our annual training got updated to say if we are feeling symptoms of heat, we have the right to take a 5-minute break.
5 minutes. 5 minutes.
That's something we go, wow, you can fan yourself for 5 minutes and cool yourself down to the point that you can get heat stroke again 5 minutes later. That's something they pushed forward for, right? They probably wanted 15 and settled on 5. Should have asked for 30, right?
Yeah.
It showed that we could really win. Oh, God. That they could have done it from the beginning. And they didn't have to wait until something terrible happened, which is true, right?
This is terrible, yeah.
And here's another one. The electrical workers won contracts that require their bosses on construction sites to supply cool water all day, but the electrical workers aren't basically putting up with this shit. And one basically said, I'm not putting up with this. I'm not going to work until there's water. And guess what? The foreman folded and left to go get some. Amazing how that works if you stand up for yourself.
That one kind of shocks me because, I mean, that's a simple, basic thing that I know has been on job sites, you know. That one shocks me. Why the hell would they not have? We've all seen those construction water barrels, you know, they always have them. So that one shocks me. For the electrical workers to not have that standard. My mom was a flagger and she worked with, she was IBEW. And so that's shocking to me. They always had a water thing on the back of one of their trucks.
Now you're in Western Washington, right?
Yep.
Yeah, so this is
I'm so far north that I can see Canada on a clear day. So I'm up there on the peninsula, the point of the end of the United States. That's where I am.
Oh wow, that's awesome. It's beautiful up there.
It's absolutely gorgeous here. Yeah.
I saw some of your Facebook pictures yesterday, and damn, that was gorgeous.
I'm so lucky. I know. I take it for granted. We live where the mountain meets the sea. So I got mountains, I've got rivers, I've got, the sea. I get everything.
But yeah, at a Starbucks in Prosser, Eastern Washington, right? Overheating became the spark for a union drive. So they actually ended up unionizing. Yep. Managers claimed the AC was fixed, but we put a fridge, a thermostat on the counter, and it's reading over 80. Oh, that was in March, not even in the height of summer, and it was hotter inside. Warm, right? It was hotter inside than it was outside because they have 500-degree ovens, water boilers going all the time, fridges giving out heat. It goes up exponentially. So, yeah, here's their partners. Their Starbucks partners were hesitant to come out in open conflict with management, especially in Washington State. That's the home of Starbucks. Like, you don't screw with Starbucks in Washington State. All right?
No, I just stayed in downtown Seattle a couple of months ago, and my hotel was right next to the Bezos ball, the big sphere. So I could literally walk out on the balcony and see it.
Juggling balls.
But from what we understand, he's packing up and leaving because, it's not well enough that he owns all of our politicians. But when the individual cities and the city council started pushing back against him, he was just kind of like, I'm going to get the hell out of here. So who knows where he's going to end up.
Well, he's going to Florida. He built a massive mansion.
Yeah, I was going to say, I thought it was Florida.
There's no state income tax, which saves him a fucking shitload of money every year.
Well, we don't have state income either here in Washington State.
Oh, okay. Mm-mm. Well, and then it's probably
which means we pay the highest tax rate in the country, and the poorest in Washington State actually pay the highest tax rate in Washington State, up to 17%. Like, it's insane.
Wow. Wait, sales tax is 17%?
Oh, no, it's higher than that. It can go higher than that. It just depends on what county you're in. But we pay tax on everything in Washington State because we don't have a state income tax. So, I mean, gas and sin tax on cigarettes and stuff like that, it's insane. We've always paid much higher prices than everybody else.
This is allegedly what Trump is, you've been hearing people on Instagram talk about what Trump wants to do is either eliminate income tax and go with sales tax and with usage taxes on basically everything, tariffs.
Right.
And that's a little frightening. Either lower it or eliminate it entirely. So that's good for corporations.
Well, the Fed can print as much money as they want, so I'm with them on do away with the income tax. But no, charging me for that stuff, I don't think so. You can turn around, you can go the other way.
Well, on top of the fact
Trump.
That it's like they collect $3 trillion in taxes, but a lot of that income tax is paid. It's not they don't collect. They couldn't collect enough in sales taxes to make up for the income tax that they would be giving up.
Oh, no.
But what was going on here? You had the wildfires and smoke last year. I'm guessing that was last August, right? We were all choking.
We've had about a couple of years, yeah.
Choking, wearing masks, and suffocating as we worked. So I talked to other partners, and we decided we couldn't work. And then a callous store manager, always an asshole manager that strikes that final blow, right? It's always an asshole, right? So when she came in to respond to workers' requests to close at least half the shop, her first thing was to call out one of our partners for wearing something off code. Did you not wear enough flair today, sweetheart? Holy shit. That's when we started walking out, and there was nothing she could do, spur of the moment. And they all look, nobody got a write-up because what are they going to do? They can't shoot us all. And that's the power in numbers and the power in solidarity.
Right.
So they won union authorization election the following month, and the manager finally, guess what? Hauled in the fans. Now, Homegrown, that might have been that. Have you heard of Homegrown? Have you eaten at a shop named Homegrown? I've never heard of it before.
No, I've never heard of it either.
All right, but this one is actually a pretty good story because they have cafes and caterers. And because of it, they have different workers at different levels and that are doing basically similar work for different pay. And they all started to organize. People were going home after a long day of heat. You're exhausted, right? They did a march on the boss. They were flyering customers outside the store on breaks in front of the managers. Pretty badass. We did sidewalk chalking. That's what my kids like to do. I love that.
I like to sidewalk chalk too.
Right? We asked an industrial hygienist to come and check out our conditions, and they set up a medical station in front of the store to interview people. Awesome. Okay. And what happened? Pizza party, Gatorade, visors, cut fruit, and a few more breaks. But that's not enough.
The pizza party.
Right. So after a near unanimous strike vote in August, they shut down the stores with a series of one-day strikes over heat. And I believe we might have even covered that last summer on How Did We Miss That a couple of summers ago. But getting to that unanimous vote took time. And this was talking about how did they organize? It took a while to bring people in. You had intense conversations. You got high schoolers and college students working in the front. Then often immigrants, older folks, and people with undocumented status in the back. And getting them all to get on the same page and agree to walk out on the boss, like that's not the easiest thing. And they had to basically be pushed. And they had to build enough trust among these groups to take a big risk together. And while heat was a unifying issue for the store workers, it turned out that the catering workers already had decent AC and fewer ovens in their production area. Well, okay, but still they wanted to join the strike.
Right.
After adding a demand to end a pay gap, and this was it. Figure out what do they need? Well, they don't like the fact that the catering drivers and the distribution drivers do similar work with different pay, so that student workers then came out of school to cheer them on. Just let's find issues that would, and you don't have to ask for one thing. You can have a list of demands. You should have a list of demands. Too often
they're going to do this.
Too often the ask is not enough. So I'm down with that. Right in the strikes, the workers won their most ambitious demand, which was discretion to close the stores if we had to keep us safe if it got too hot or smoky.
That's what they always fucking say. That's what they did to my daughter. We'll just close the store to keep you safe. We're keeping you safe. They didn't care how much it inconvenienced the community to not have the dollar store open for 5 days.
Right. Or the income from those for the employees, because they're certainly not going to pay them to stay home to keep them safe. You don't get paid for not working. It's work without pay. You know, it's like punishment.
I told my daughter to file unemployment. I was like, no, fuck that. If they're telling you you can't come to work for a week, you file unemployment. Like,
right. But that fall, homegrown workers won, again, union recognition with Unite Here Local 8. So you have people that are working together, organizing, filing with the NLRB and winning their fight. And after a long contract battle and 3-month strike to reinstate a fired coworker, they finally won their first union contract this March. Fuck yeah. And now the layoffs start. They don't tell you about that until afterwards, but you and I know.
Yeah.
The contract locks in an innovative idea, which is heat pay. And I love this idea that after an hour above 82 degrees in the shop, they earn 150% wages for the rest of the shift. Above 86, it's double wages or the right to leave without punishment. Without punishment, but also without pay. So you're sacrificing. But look, if it's that hot and you don't want to work there, you shouldn't have to risk your job to do this crap. I mean, it's fucking crazy. For a company that's still making billions. Now, Homegrown doesn't make billions. They're I believe, a more local shop. But here, the point is to make management cave and give AC so they don't have to give double pay. And if they don't, they won the right to picket, flyer, and even while they're under contract to take the fight to the public. So that's nice if they built it into the contract, right? Those might be the most important wins since these battles aren't going away. The company can get AC, but heat waves are going to get hotter and hotter, and wildfires are going to get worse. And this is going to be a workplace issue like forever.
Yeah, it is.
Right?
Climate change. That's what they keep telling us. Climate change, climate change, climate change. They're screaming it. The Democrats are campaigning on it. So why are they not getting behind legislation that would protect workers? Because they don't give two shits, because they're in the pockets of the same corporations that don't want to put an AC unit in the dollar store, you know? Like, it's the corporations, and this is my problem that, you know, I rant about this all the time. I have a hard time going back into late stage capitalism after I'm 50 years old. I've been working since I was 15 years old, and where has it got me? I got ripped off for my 401k. Could I ever have bought a house Hell no. Like, minimum wage hasn't rose since 2009. And, instead, every 4 years, we got all excited about, oh, the Democrats or the Republicans, when at the end of the day, they're all the same. They're owned by the corporations that screw you, the workers, over constantly. And, from state to state, some states have got it much worse. I feel bad for the states in the South because they've got the heat. And they've, have such low pay. I would love to see workers come together and unite for heat pay because, hey, it's going to get warmer.
Yeah, the heat is getting hotter out. So, I was actually going to bring from Biloxi Blues. It was like, it's Africa hot. Like,
it's Africa hot.
That's what's going on right now lately.
I wish it was hot. It's not hot where I am.
Oh, dude, it was in the 90s all weekend. We spent the weekend. Luckily,
I love it. I'm a sun worshiper. I love the heat. So
yeah, we spent the weekend with the kids at the pool. It was just.
That's fun. Yeah.
Yeah, it's fun.
Family
I brought
time.
the laptop and I'm sitting here and tweeting and angry tweeting at people about Israel and watching kids blow it up with their fucking heads. And it's just wonderful. And looking at my kids playing in the pool, it's a very trying time. And I think you also are experiencing this. Like, you're a grandma. How, enjoying your grandkids, knowing and seeing what we see all day and trying to put that aside and enjoy the stuff, knowing it's real hard. I got to tell you. And I think
it is.
It is for a lot of people. We're far from alone in all this, but,
there's such a lack of empathy. Americans are so propagandized. They just have no empathy at all. And that's where it shocks me the most. Like, you have kids, you have grandkids. Can you imagine that being your 8-year-old grandchild with their head blown out? Like, where is the humanity? There's no fucking humanity left. And it's infuriating.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and somebody said, I can't possibly pay attention to all the crap that's happening. And I think that's kind of the plan of the elite. It's shock and awe. Like, they're trying to
watch my show. I cover it all.
Well, yes. Watch the Trailer Park for sure, in the afternoons. And I certainly do. Along with Kit at Hardlands in the morning, and we stay informed, and Steve at AM Wake Up. We've got a network and a family of independent channels, and not just INN. We're premiering and running stuff all day and clips from the shows that you might have missed. Again, RBN, Savvy, there's Fiorella and Pasta with his channel, and Matt Wineglass is now popping up with the Homeless Left and starting to do more stuff with us, and excited to see what we can potentially do together.
Hotspot does a great job of getting short clips out of what's going on. Yeah, there's so many good ones.
Nico and Hotspot, and it's so much great independent media. Let me just go quickly. We did get a wonderful donation last week from Kathy Lloyd, so she had to be added to the list. Woohoo! Thank you, Kathy. Love you. These are all of our current and past supporters, and we're so grateful. If you do want to support financially, if not, we totally understand. And just enjoy, share the content, and hang out with chat. If you can, Cash App is $sign Indie News Network. We've got Patreon, we got PayPal, we got Rumble, we've even got Substack, but I decided to take that one off. But we're going to get to our next story. But we, again, appreciate you deeply supporting independent media. But we talked a lot about the college protests. We covered what happened at UCLA. We covered what happened at Columbia, of course. Right. We covered what happened at Indiana. Remember when they had the snipers on the roof at Indiana University?
Yes. So crazy.
All right. But so this guy, Steven Semler, he's got a Substack called Polygraph, and I found it through one of the aggregator sites. Polygraph is great. Yep. So
I came across it too.
Steven brings the numbers, and he's looking at, what percentage of the college protests, the campus protests, were peaceful? Now, there are some caveats and some stars here, and I read this. Read through this to make sure, what is he talking about with his numbers? And it's actually a little bit skewed, but you'll understand what I'm talking about. So, if you can support independent media, he's also an independent researcher. He got attacked. His name got in a New York Times article talking about the pier, which isn't working, which is really cool. And he wrote that in a responsible statecraft essay. But he writes up, like, what's the situation here that both Jill and Joe Biden say that these campus protesters are violent, but his numbers show that more than 98% of the Gaza protests at U.S. colleges and universities have been peaceful. I don't think that's...
I believe it.
I don't think that's much of a surprise. Oh, yeah, by the way, most of the ones that weren't peaceful were because of police or pro-Israel counter-protesters.
Infiltrators, yeah.
As George Carlin says, I'm going to repeat that again because that sounds vaguely important. Most of the ones that weren't peaceful were because of police or pro-Israel counter-protesters. Stephen looked at 1,205 U.S. campus protests between October 7th and May 24th. These were recorded and coded by Armed Conflict Location and Event Data Project, which is ACLED, amazing, which collects data on all reported political violence and protest events around the world. That's a cool organization, but of course, I think it's got its biases. And of course, now the Guardian, we fucked the Guardian for selling out Julian Assange, free Julian Assange.
And Glenn Greenwald.
And Glenn, yeah, and they sold out Glenn too. Yep. Guardian featured ACLED's data last month to show that 97% of the campus demonstrations from April 18th to May 3rd, just over a 2-week period, were peaceful. He says, I bothered doing my own analysis because I wanted the largest sample size possible and a closer look at the protests that's coded as violent, right? So he says only 22 of the 1,205 were even coded as violent. That's a almost nothing number. That's a rounding error, right? So
what, the Biden administration lied to you? No way. No way.
Right? So police intervene. Of the 20, only 22, this number refers to when the protesters themselves behave violently. If it included cases where police and pro-Israel counter-protesters sought out and harmed the protesters, the number would be much higher.
It's a great American tradition.
Of course. Well, okay. Thank you, Tim Dillon. I don't know why he did that.
It's a great American tradition.
It is. It is a great American tradition, I guess, for the police to break up protests and cause violence where we're at.
It is.
Yeah. So police intervened in campus protests 135 times, and in 121 of them, the protests weren't categorized as violent demonstrations, even when the police used violence against protesters. So
it's always the police. It's always the cops that are bringing the violence. We've seen it for years now. For years, it doesn't matter if it was Black Lives Matter or if it was Antifa or if it was pro-Palestinian. The cops get out there. They're out there for one reason, and that is to beat you down into submission. And, if they're in the mood to arrest you, well, then you might get arrested or they'll just beat you.
Unbelievable. That's the police for you. We love the cops. Yeah, support your cops. But his key takeaway, again, even if they use shooting protesters with rubber bullets and making mass arrests didn't qualify as a violent demonstration unless some protesters decided to forcefully resist.
Oh, jeez.
Holy shit.
Forcefully by sitting down on the ground, right? I bet you they're talking about those college professors, those ethic college professors they arrested.
Holy shit. A key takeaway was that the campus protesters were far more likely to demonstrate restraint than commit violence, even if someone was being violent toward them. And another key takeaway is that campus protests pretty much only became violent after counter-protesters or the police showed up. It was like hippie communes.
It was the flag in the eye. You remember the flag in the eye?
Oh, yeah. She was stabbed in the eye with a flag. No, she was walking by somebody in a line and she bumped into them and he happened to poke her near the eye and she was fine the next day, but stabbed in the eye. Everybody getting stabbed in the eye, right? So everything was hyper exaggerated, but without either of those parties imposing themselves on the protesters, Steve found just 2 instances of violence demonstrations, and the violence was directed at inanimate objects, computers, and windows. In one of those cases, very famously, police later arrived and inflicted far more harm on the students than the students did to the windows. That's the police raid on Heinz Hall, of course, in Columbia. right? And then we've got that in most of the other 20 cases, the violence from protesters appeared to be either in self-defense or vastly outweighed by the violence directed at them. But that doesn't get written up. Granted, this is based on his reading Ackled's description of each incident, which are only a paragraph or two long, but here are a couple of examples of what I'm talking about, right? These are amazing paragraphs. April 30th April 2024. Pro-Palestinian demonstrators continued their encampment at Dixon Plaza at UCLA. Shortly before midnight, around 100 pro-Israel counter-demonstrators wearing black outfits and white masks removed barriers separating the two demonstrations, attempted to tear down the encampment, attacked the demonstrators, throwing fireworks, tear gas, and debris into the encampment, spraying chemicals at demonstrators. Well, no, it was Zaka and it was IDF aligned people also.
Oh, it's IDF aligned. Okay.
Yeah, and it was like Dr. Phil's buddies were out there. That guy Aaron, whatever. We actually had a video of this guy bragging about how he just did this, spraying chemicals like the skunk at demonstrators, like they spray at Palestinians that are worshiping, beating up a student journalist and an editor with the Daily Bruin, striking demonstrators with wooden slabs, and we saw that they were like hitting them with pallets, right, and yelling anti-Palestinian and anti-African slurs. Pro-Palestine demonstrators fought to keep counter-demonstrators away from their barricades. UCWS said 25 demonstrators were taken to the hospital after the attack. How many of the pro-Israel demonstrators were? I would guess that probably none.
Right.
Right. Unless they hit themselves. But this one is the crazy one. So on April 30th, some pro-Palestinian demonstrators encamped at the main gate at the University of Arizona in Tucson. I think actually Heidi Benner might have even been there. But late in the night, dozens of police in riot gear stormed the encampment, firing rubber bullets, tear gas, and pepper balls to disperse the encampment. We got video of that. We showed that a few weeks ago, too.
We did, too. I did, too.
Students threw water bottles and pushed back against the police line. And I wanted to have this like basically up on every slide. But literally, this is what the graph looks like of, okay, you know, here you go, shit libs. You really want to think that they were, and not just the shit libs, but the Trumpers especially. Because
the Trumpers, yes.
They need the narrative to be that the protests were violent and that first of all, they're all copsuckers. They're all copsuckers. All right. And on top of the fact that they love the IDF because the IDF supports the cops.
Yeah. Well, right? They're Zionists. They're Christian Zionists. So, yeah.
Exactly. But what's over 98%? All right. Here's the data. 1,183 peaceful protests and 22 not peaceful protests, of which 20 were instigated by the cops. Right. And so that's Steve Semler talking about this. And I also wanted to give special shout out to our friend Nuno. He pointed out that speaking of the college protests, the New York District Attorney 3 days ago.
I was just going to say they dropped charges, right?
They sure did. They dropped the charges against the pro-Palestine protesters.
30 of the Columbia protesters, right?
Right. So those are the last 30 is what he said. When Zionists say that these are terrorists and violent, reality is they're not. They're standing up against the unspeakable violence being committed against Palestinians. For once, law has stood on the right side against Israeli bullying.
Yeah. Manhattan DA drops charges against 30 Columbia protesters arrested because, get this, prosecutor cites a lack of evidence, a lack of criminal history, and internet or intel discipline of the Columbia is a decision to dismiss trespassing cases. So basically, it came from inside Columbia to just drop these charges.
Basically, you know, and they had already, at least DA, Columbia had done enough that the DA is like, look, I don't need to prosecute and press charges. I don't know if you saw, but the people at Columbia, we covered this too. They had their own graduation. It was beautiful.
Yes, it was. It was beautiful. Yeah.
Inside a cathedral. It was stunning, and they had their own thing. They're just like, screw you, administration. We're going to do it ourselves, and I love them for that. All right, let's see what's going on with chat. Goodness. Rabbi Shmuley.
No, not Shmuley.
Boo.
Shmuley's here. Boo.
Shmuley. No, we don't have one, Rabbi.
Shmuley
there
stops
is
by my
Heidi.
streams occasionally too.
Heidi says that she never did end up going to the protests there in Tucson. She had told me about them, and she knew people that were there for sure. Yeah. Oh, wow. We got a great crowd here tonight. There's Anna Mayers. Woohoo. Shanda's here. Yes, Shanda's here. Hi, Anna's over on the Rockfin. We always love that. Timbuktu was hanging out. Protester stole Orf's camera. That's right. Listen, Orf walked around a protest saying,
crazy.
Wait a minute. He walked around a protest with an I Love Bibi shirt. He walked around that ring around the White House trying to instigate against pro-Palestine protesters and trying to incite a certain kind of reaction to basically, I don't know if he was basically mocking Andy Ngo and being like, they did this to me and see what
I
they
haven't
did.
seen this, and I follow what Orf does, so you'll have okay, that's
I wasn't
crazy.
too thrilled about that. You know, he's done a couple of things that have been a little weird during this, and he's almost kind of trying to both sides it. And he was like, "Is this really genocide? Is this?" And I'm like, "Is Orf trolling? What the fuck are you doing, dude?" Like,
I think he might be trolling because that sounds crazy.
right? Like, I hope he's trolling because again, we love Orf, and Orf is another Indie Media Award honoree. Here's the sound. Woo! Okay, thank you, Reef, for the Indie Media Award sound. Yeah, Rabbi Shmuley, nice hoggle picture. Yeah, that's a hornswoggle or a hoggle picture. That's gross.
I have it. I always put on my. Missy always yells at me, "How dare you insult hoggle?"
Yeah,
I'm like, okay, that's a valid point, Misty.
It's all cool, Anna. Yes, Shanda decided to grace us with our presence from the Trailer Park Direct.
I was invited.
And no, we love her and we appreciate it. And yeah, this is a lot of fun. So I've got another story about this is the Norman Solomon story about, and I love he uses Maya Angelou. All right, and that I love. When U.S. officials show you who they are, believe them. So, well, that's 100% true, right? So this was in CounterPunch, but also in ScheerPost, also another Indie Media Award honoree. We love those Indie Media Award honorees, and we try to showcase at least a few of them every week. You know, Popular Resistance, ScheerPost, Truth Out. Those are the kind of orgs that and Truth Out's struggling. They're begging for money like crazy right now. It's hard to see the emails that are coming in, and Common Dreams is begging for money constantly. All of them. I mean, we really need to support independent media because nobody else is doing it. There's
been a real drop off in the last, and I get it. The economy sucks. Everybody's hurting. Grocery prices are insane. Like nobody has the extra income to give. You know,
they're
it's
screaming
a tough
the
time
alarm
for
bells,
indie media right now.
It is,
and they want that. The establishment always attacks our money. You know, monetization, how we can raise money. Why? Because they know if we can't afford to support ourselves, we'll have no choice but to go back into late stage capitalism.
And we just talked about that with T-Lev, the Last American Vagabond, was getting demonetized by Stripe. I wrote an article about it and started to raise
and it
some
got
awareness.
reversed.
And it got reversed. It got reversed, thankfully.
That's badass.
And not only that, they changed their terms of service to further define what a content creator is versus a crowdfunder. So we have to be very careful to say that we have supporters, but they're not donors to our channel, because donors indicates crowdfunding, and that changes the classification that they have towards us. But no, we are content creator, and you guys are providing support for our channel to make more content, and that's the whole idea. But Norman Solomon is a scholar and kind of, you know, he's good on Palestine, but I don't agree with him on a lot of things. But I thought this was actually a good article because he quoted Maya Angelou. Believe them the first time when someone shows you who they are, and this should apply to foreign policy elites who show you who they are time after time. Right. And the douchebags running the Pentagon and State Department have been in overdrive now for more than 250 days, supporting ongoing slaughter of Palestinian civilians in Gaza. Right. Supposedly dedicated to defense and diplomacy. Those officials have worked to implement and disguise Washington's war policies. Right. I can't even say with a straight face, which right. They have, of course, taken more lives than any government this century. It's not even close. Yep. Among the weapons of war, cluster munitions are especially horrific And of course, we know that our friend Eva Bartlett has reported on pedo mines. But 67 Democrats and an equal number of Republicans in the House voted last week to prevent the U.S. government from continuing to send those to armies overseas. That's nice, but twice as many House members voted the other way. And they defeated a Pentagon funding amendment that would have prohibited the transfer of cluster munitions to other countries. Well, what are cluster munitions and why are they bad? He's going to explain that in a minute. The lawmakers ensure that the U.S. can keep supplying these weapons to the military forces of Ukraine and Israel. Great. As of now, 124 nations have signed on to a treaty banning cluster munitions, which often wreck the bodies of civilians. Right? The bomblets from cluster munitions are particularly attractive to children because they resemble a bell with a loop of ribbon at the end. Just like this, that's the Just Security Organization explains that. But no member of Congress need worry that one of their own children might pick up such a bomblet someday, perhaps mistaking it for a toy, only to be instantly killed or maimed with shrapnel. We've seen what the result of these pedo mines are. They're gross, and what happens to the kids is awful. The Biden administration correctly responded to indications, later proven accurate, that Russia was using cluster munitions in Ukraine. No, sorry. No, those were Ukrainian and they had Ukrainian stampings. Sorry, Norman. Like I said, Norman didn't always get it right. Right? So they correctly responded to indications, right? But as it turned out, it was proven accurate that Ukraine was using them, not Russia. But here's what Jen Psaki, and I can't stand her, right? But we're going to listen to her for 30 seconds. She told journalists that, of course, if reports of the Russian use of these weapons turned out to be true, it would potentially be a war crime. So what does that mean if we're now sending them overseas and sending them to Israel and to Ukraine?
That don't exist.
Thanks, Jen. There are reports of illegal cluster bombs and vacuum bombs being used by the Russians. If that's true, what is the next step of this administration, and is there a red line for how much violence will be tolerated against civilians in this manner that's illegal and potentially a war crime?
It would be. I don't have any confirmation of that. We have seen the reports. If that were true, it would potentially be a war crime. Obviously, there are a range of
Hey, how about that? It obviously would be a war crime. Yeah, only when the Russians do it, though. Allegedly. According to
we
the Biden
always do that.
administration.
We always are that way with Russia. I mean, with all, munitions. If they do it, it's a war crime.
Right. Back then, the front page of the New York Times described internationally banned cluster munitions as a variety of weapons, rockets, bombs, missiles, and artillery projectiles that disperse lethal bomblets in midair over a wide area, hitting military targets and civilians alike. That's not even the pedo mines that we're talking about, the banned pedo mines that Ukraine 100% was using. Days later, of course, the Times reported that NATO officials accused Russia of using cluster bombs in its invasion. Always accuse them of that which you are guilty, I believe is the phrase that NATO just subscribes to, right? And the newspaper added that anti-personnel cluster bombs kill indiscriminately, so they're banned under international law. Yeah, so that's why we're sending them to Ukraine.
Right.
But when Ukrainian military forces ran low on ammunition last year, the U.S. administration decided to start shipping cluster munitions to them. Hey, how about that?
We got a bunch of leftover cluster munitions. Let's just get rid of them. I know. Let's send them to Ukraine. We're running low.
There we go. Right. All countries should condemn the use of these weapons under any circumstances. Human Rights Watch, of course, declared. BBC correspondent John Simpson summed up a quarter century ago. Used against human beings, cluster bombs are some of the most savage weapons of modern warfare. All right, come on. We have to do funny voices here. This is fucking insane. We're arming Nazis with cluster bombs and then blaming the Russians for it.
Right. Yeah.
Aye. As the Congressional Research Service reported this spring, cluster munitions disperse large numbers of submunitions imprecisely over an extended area. They frequently fail to detonate and are difficult to detect and can remain explosive hazards for decades because kids will find them sitting in a field a month later, or a week later, a year later, and boom, that kid loses an arm if they're lucky.
Exactly. And they do. They're notorious duds. Like, notorious.
Yep. Base Maternal Rage says that we need one of these.
We're fucked.
Yes, we are.
My
Right.
girl Misty. Yes, I have that on my deck too. I use the "we're fucked" from Misty all the time.
We have to. CRS report added that civilian casualties are primarily caused by munitions being fired into areas where soldiers and civilians are intermixed, inaccurate cluster munitions landing in populated areas, or civilians traversing areas where cluster munitions have been employed but failed to explode. Intentionally inaccurate cluster munitions landing in. That sounds like what they're doing. Oops, we shot and killed a bunch of Palestinian people, Israel. That's what they... Oopsies. We shot and killed the World Central Kitchen workers. Sorry, oopsies, multiple times. The UN schools, we keep bombing them. It's got to be a mistake. Every university in Palestine, yeah, huh? The horrible immediate effects are just the beginning. It's been over 5 decades since the U.S. first dropped cluster bombs on Laos. And who was it that somebody said that there was 80 years or that bombs have been there? Yep. All right. 5 decades. The most bombed country in the world per capita. The contamination from cluster munitions, remnants, and other unexploded ordnance is so vast that fewer than 10% of affected areas have been cleared. Oh, my God.
Oh, my God. 10%. Fewer than 10%.
I remember
this is insane.
I went to Belgium when I was in my 20s, and I went to like the World War I fields, and there were still like landmines that had not been exploded, that they were like sitting there as relics.
Crazy.
It's nuts.
That's crazy. Yeah, that is nuts.
And here, an estimated 80 million submunitions still pose a danger, especially curious to children. I mean, wow.
Wow.
So here are the members of Congress who just greenlighted more cluster munitions. They're dodging, of course, grisly realities. The basic approach is to proceed through such human reality as though such human realities don't matter. If an ally is using them, well, like I said, if the U.S. uses them, it's okay. But of course, when Russia's doing it, overall with carnage persisting in Gaza, it's easy enough to say that Netanyahu has shown who he is. But so has President Biden. And so most of powerful Republicans and Democrats in Congress. I would say all of them, Norman. I think that you're hedging. None of the above. Sure. We are none of the above here. We know that every single one of them, right down to the squad, right down to, look, Shama Sawant might be our last hope. And her aligning with DSA, she's done a few, like she's fought with the workers. Like, but, exactly. Like, man, labor has really badly let us down. It's only when the workers come together themselves on a small scale and organize that I find that it really works. Otherwise, you end up with infrastructure, top-down, capitalism, bullying, and all kinds of shit. But getting back here, that while the U.S. has been supplying, of course, a large majority of the weapons and ammunition imported by Israel, a similar approach from official Washington with ineffectual grumbling has enabled Israel to lethally constrict food going into Gaza. Again, famously documented that especially since the pier was built, the amount of aid getting in there got cut like by 80%, some silly number.
They can't even prove any aid was ever delivered from that pier. The only thing we know that was delivered from that pier was a raid that killed like 400 people.
Soldiers, that was it. Yep.
Yeah.
Right, during the State of the Union in early March, Biden announced plans for the U.S. to build a port at Gaza to bring in food and other aid, but his speech didn't mention the Pentagon's expectation that such a seaport could take 60 days to become operational. Right? At the time, a Common Dreams headline thumbed up the hollowness of the gambit that the Biden aid port rebuked as a pathetic PR effort as Israel stars Gazans. And we talked about this. Reef and Colin cover this on INN News. Greg and Big Bad Crab and Himbo cover this on Politically Homeless. I think everybody's talking about this.
Oh yeah, I've been covering it.
And then it fell apart after $320 million and being built with the bodies and houses of the destroyed Palestinians that they've killed and the houses that they've destroyed. Even at full tilt, the envisioned port wouldn't come anywhere near compensating for Israel's methodical blockage. Wow, that was a methodical blockage of aid trucks. And we also covered that where they were having parties at the Rafah Gate and trying to stop the trucks from coming in.
Barbecuing, all the stuff they're stealing off the trucks. Yeah, we saw that.
The trucks are still, we know, by far the best way to get food to 2.2 million people facing starvation. Not facing, they are being starved right now. Right, and that's what Zayed says. Right, an official has saved the children, offered a reality check. Children in Gaza cannot wait to eat. We know this. They're literally dying from malnutrition, starving. Saving their lives is a matter of hours or days, not even weeks. Right, and again, he's quoting The Nation, shitlib papers. Right, and this week, more than 3 months after the ballyhoo drum roll about the plans for a port on the Gaza coast, news broke that the whole thing's a colossal failure, even on its own terms. Right, it was built on short notice to rush humanitarian aid, largely failed. No, totally failed. And then what about the flotilla? They're not going to let the flotilla go either, right?
Yeah, as far as I know, they shut that flotilla totally down.
I heard that the ship that they pulled the registry from the country of registry from the ship.
Yeah,
so it couldn't sail.
Yeah, like you're not a ship anymore. Like they were in Turkey last I heard, and then they got shut down, right?
I mean, that's another crazy story, you know, and who got on that boat and how they were able to fit. You couldn't pay me enough money to potentially get on a boat like that and go sail to Gaza. I mean,
yeah, that was so.
And then I brought up an article from 10 years ago. They sent the flotilla, and guess what? Israel sunk it.
Yeah, and you know, Cynthia McKinney was one of those people that was on that flotilla, and I think she's done a couple of TikToks YouTubes on it, and yeah, it's worth going back and looking at that first flotilla and what Israel did to it with the U.S.'s support. You got to, you know.
So, as Israel's crucial military patron, the U.S. government could insist on an end to the continual massacre of civilians in Gaza. Notice he doesn't say genocide. It's really interesting.
No, they never do.
He hedges. All right, and demand a complete halt to interference with aid deliveries. Instead, Israel continues to inflict unconscionable death and suffering while mass starvation is closing in. They'll use all the other words, but they won't say genocide.
Right, mass starvation is kicking in. I love where the BBC says there's no water in Gaza. Well, who shut it off? You know, they never will come out and just say, oh, Israel shut off the water to Gaza. I heard a report that there's 60,000 kids on the brink of starving to death. I mean, they're going to starve in a week or they're going to starve in 2 weeks. Like, no, they're going to start dropping dead because they're past the point of, you know, being able to come back from it.
Right. So Norman closes out by saying Maya Angelou's advice certainly applies. When the president and a big congressional majority show that they're willing accomplices to mass murder, believe them. It's fitting that Angelou, a renowned poet and writer, gave her voice to words from Rachel Corrie, who famously, of course, was crushed to death one day in 2003 while standing in front of an Israeli army bulldozer as it moved to demolish a Palestinian family's home in Gaza. And evidence and video, if you watch it, shows that they not only did they do it, they did it on purpose. Like they totally knew what they were doing. It wasn't an accident. Right?
Rachel Corrie? Oh, yeah, no, it wasn't an accident. Rachel was from where, you know, my home state, she's very close. And yeah, that is something that we have screamed about as long as I've been doing this because it should have got more attention than it ever did. You know, I'm glad people still bring her up.
Yeah. So he says it's fitting that Angelou gave her voice to Rachel Corrie. A few years after she died, after Rachel Corrie died, Maya Angelou recorded a video while reading from an email that the young activist sent, quote, "We are all born and someday we'll all die, most likely to some degree alone. What if our aloneness isn't a tragedy? What if our aloneness is what allows us to speak the truth without being afraid? What if our aloneness is what allows us to adventure, to experience the world as a dynamic presence, as a changeable, interactive thing?" And I thought that was also an interesting and profound quote because, you know, a lot of times we feel alone in this world and in independent media and in being independent in this country with the way that the duopoly and the corporate media has reinforced this narrative that it's got to be Trump or Biden. Which one's it going to be? And if it's not going to be, you got to pick booby. First of all, you don't have to pick. You don't have to pick. 100 million Americans don't pick. You don't have to pick. Nobody gives a shit. In the end, 80% of the states already decided. Like, yes, you can pick at a local level, and where are you going to have impact? I go back to that Princeton University study that says that we have no impact on federal policy because we're not big donors.
No, we don't.
And to get all upset over the horse race. I mean, look, I yell at people all the time about this. Like, why are we focusing on this shit? Like, let's talk about the stories that we can, that people aren't talking about, that are actually happening, that they need to know about. Like what's happening in Gaza, because they're not talking about it on corporate media at all. Or they're now starting to, but it's still whitewashing, and it's the way that some people were killed in Gaza, but the Israelis were all murdered by Palestinians. It's the double standard and the double narrative of how they frame all of it. And Pierce Morgan is like one of the worst.
Oh, he's the worst. Yeah,
oh my God,
sure.
And he at least to his credit has had people that are pro-Palestine on. He's had Bassem Youssef. He has, yeah. He had Abby Martin, and he had Rania Khalek on, and they all smack him down. He's starting to maybe get it, but then his bosses tell him that to get in line, and he does. But he knows
who his donors are.
He certainly knows where that bread is buttered. And one final, before we do that, let's just go quickly to the donor slide. Again, thank you. I love you all. So grateful to everybody who's here and supporting INN, supporting independent media.
It's so great to see all you guys. And thank you, Anna Maris, for the shout out over on the Rock Fan. I appreciate it.
And she did donate over there on the Rock Fans. So we've got the Rock Fams, and there's Delilah shared it over on Twitter, the stream. So hope she's doing well. She had a thing with her cat going on, and she also has like some kind of debilitating physical stuff. So she was seeing, is there anybody that could give her a ride? Because sometimes she's in too much pain to even drive, and she's a mom, and I feel awful. She's terrific woman. If you don't know Delilah Barrios, she actually ran for senator or governor of Texas a couple of years back, and big fan of hers. Big fan of her. She's an awesome lady. But yeah, then there's the UN HCR, which again does a no shit thing, and I know Sabby covered this the other night. Israel has systematically violated laws regarding civilian harm. UN finds 6 seemingly indiscriminate attacks likely carried out using U.S. provided bombs. Again, no surprise, that we're funding a genocide that are attacking civilians directly and targeting civilians. Look at this. Oh.
But it's okay because both sides of our duopoly support that. It doesn't matter if you're going to vote for Trump, or it doesn't matter if you're going to vote for Biden. At the end of the day, AIPAC's going to win.
Oh, AIPAC's already won. Actually, that was exactly the quote that I had when I was talking to Tara. I went on her show. She invited me on about 2 weeks ago. It was great. I've been producing that show for 2 years, and
yeah, you have.
And I had never been a guest, so it was just interesting to kind of step on the other side and just kind of talk inside baseball. And Tara's become a great friend, and that was a lot of fun, and I appreciate her supporting independent media, supporting INN. There's Shabby Sabs sharing the stream right now. Look at that. I love you, Shabby. Israeli forces, we know, have demonstrated a pattern of systematically targeting densely populated civilian areas across hundreds of attacks in Gaza that likely violate international wartime laws. No, not likely. They do.
They're human shields.
Well, though they're not shields if they're still murdering them. Right. But the Office of UN High Commissioner for Refugees found in a report released Wednesday, of course. Right. Monitoring by OHCHR strongly indicates, right? OCHR, not OSHA, but OCHR, indicates that the IDF, or the IOF, as we all call them, the Israeli
what are they? They've always been the IDF in my entire life, and now they're the IOF. It's just like when they changed ISIS to ISIL.
Well, we changed that because they don't defend very much. They're more an occupation force. So we
I get it. No, you're right.
The Israeli occupation force, which is really what we call the IDF.
That makes sense.
They call them the IDF, and they get really mad when we call them the IOF.
Okay, well, I'm going to make it a point to be calling them the IOF from here on out.
Yeah, it makes Zionists really mad when you call them that, because first of all, they don't really believe that they're occupiers. They don't want to come to that reality. It's amazing.
Take a DNA test and tell me who's got more native
allowed.
blood. I know,
illegal.
not allowed. It's illegal. Yeah.
Right. But monitoring indicates that the IOF have systematically failed to comply with the following fundamental principles of international humanitarian law in its conduct of hostilities in Gaza since 7th of October. Now, before you can even say that, they're charged with the care of these people because they occupy them. So on top of international humanitarian law, there's literally like the Geneva Convention because you are occupying a people.
Well, just like we took care of the Native Americans. Come on.
Right. Well, that we are literally the model that Israel has used to deal with the Palestinians for 75 years. And look, it's taken over 200 years for the slow extermination of the Native American population here, unfortunately. And again, they're going to follow that model and dwindle it down to this basically nobody left. And it's disgraceful. It's sad.
And they've accomplished a huge mission in the last 6 months, 7 months, how many that they've exterminated off of, and to not call it a genocide. I mean, some days when I go through my feed, Indy, I think they're worse than Nazis.
It's making people run for their lives every day, wondering when the next bomb is coming. The kids are getting shell shocked. I mean, and unless you have this in your feed, you're oblivious to it because they're not showing it to you anywhere else. And I feel badly, and I'm angry at the people that don't see any of this. But at the same time, I understand that they are being propagandized. They're being manipulated. And unless you seek this out and you're listening to people that are screaming about it, the corporate media is telling you to be mad about it. So a lot of people are, because that's what they listen to. And they listen to NPR. We know what NPR is talking about.
Oh.
So, the principle of distinction, the prohibition of indiscriminate attacks, the principle of proportionality, and the principle of precautions in attack. These attacks of an apparent indiscriminate nature are among hundreds of a similar nature, giving rise to the appearance of a pattern of attacks over months. No, it's not an appearance. It is.
It is. Yeah.
Right. So the analysis laid out 6 incidents carried out between October and December. That's just look at what they've done since then. All right. And said it were emblematic of their indiscriminate bombings. They targeted the attacks on densely populated areas, used weapons that arms experts and the UNHCR said should not be used on civilian neighborhoods due to the huge amount of collateral damage they cause.
Yeah.
But that's actually the plan, as we learned from the Where's Daddy and the Lavender AI program, where they're allowing soldiers up to 10 civilians per quote-unquote Hamas member that they're targeting, or they're letting him just follow that person home and target and blow up their generations of their family at the same time.
Oh, insane.
Oh, it's crazy. But according to the report, each attack either used, these GBU 31, 32, or 39 bombs, which are 2,000, 1,000, and 250-pound bombs, respectively, falling on a child. These are U.S.-made JDAMs manufactured by Boeing.
By Boeing. So for all of you who've got your 401ks and they're wrapped up in these Vanguards, you know what? You're supporting Boeing at the end of the day. We're supporting the military-industrial complex and the making of these bombs that they're dropping on little children and their families.
Yeah. The incidents laid out by the UNHCR include the October 31st bombing of the Jabalia refugee camp in northern Gaza, which was at that time the single worst attack carried out by Israel in its genocide. At least Truthout is that's Mike Ludwig at Truthout. He'll mention it. He's got no problem with that. The attack was carried out with at least 4 GBU-32s or potentially GBU-31s and destroyed 10 buildings and damaged 10 more. Again, who's in those buildings? It's women and children mostly.
Yep. Elderly.
So there's
not a lot of elderly left.
Human shields. UNHCR verified at least 56 people killed in the incident. Other analyses, like the one by London war analyst Air Wars, have found that over 120 people, including 69 children, were killed in the strike, while hundreds of others were injured. No big deal, right? We're U.S. military. Well, now we need to call Boeing and replenish the bombs. That's literally like, what the fuck is going on?
That's the way we look at it. And that is why we've sent all of our old munitions to Ukraine and Israel.
Yep. Hoping that they'll be duds because we need to replace them. And
we can build more, like Lindsey Graham says.
We got to spend that $850 billion every year. Come on, it's got to go somewhere, because otherwise you can't get $850 billion next year or 860 and keep pushing it higher and fucking higher every single year.
Every time, yeah.
It's
and the Democrats will sign off on it. Remember when Trump, his first year in office, the Democrats gave him a bigger defense bill than he asked for.
Oh yeah, yep. Trump did that, and I think they did it for Biden too. He asked for 850, they gave him 868 this year.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah, that's right.
Right. So here's another one. Good measure. A December attack on another place. Osh. I'm not even to butcher that, in Gaza City. And that's emblematic of the indiscriminate nature of their bombing campaign. Another dropping at least 9 GBU-31s on the neighborhood. Those are the 1,000-pound bombs, by the way. Then one of the most densely populated parts of Gaza. No big deal. The review found at least 60 Palestinians killed, while 15 buildings destroyed and 14 others damaged. This might have even been where we showed the drone footage. The Gray Zone had this incredible drone footage back in the late fall of some of the buildings overhead and what they looked like. And they were all homes destroyed. There weren't.
Well, and that's the goal too, not just to, genocide the Palestinian people, but to level Gaza so that way they can go in there. And, they're selling the property already on the coast, like for condos and whatnot. I brought a woman 6 months ago, a Jewish woman who was like, oh, sure, I'll live there. We'll bulldoze right over them. We don't care.
Yeah, they were actually selling the land in Teaneck, New Jersey. They were selling off.
Yeah, they're doing seminars like freaking like timeshare. Come on in. They do a whole weekend getaway thing.
Right. So, but literally, and the Kushners are involved also in selling.
Yes.
The land over there. And yeah. So this is why when Trump comes back in office, because I don't believe there's any way, unless it's totally rigged, that the Democrats are going to hold office.
Right.
Drive down any street in America. Tell me how many Trump signs and tell me how many Biden signs you see anywhere. There is no way. Controversy. But now YouTube won't take down your channel for saying I don't trust any of the numbers anywhere coming from any election because our system has been rigged since 2000 or before.
At least, when you go back, honestly, I think it's been rigged way before we were even born. But, yeah, absolutely. And here's the thing, the Democrats and the mainstream media, meaning MSNBS and those types, they're already laying the groundwork to make it look like it's possible that the American public just saw right through Trump and they decided at the last minute to come in and save the Democrats. And I've seen it for the last week or two, they're like, oh, the polls here, they could change and they could swing to Biden, workers are going to vote for him. So I see them laying out the groundwork to try to still it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a little scary what's happening with that. But of course, yeah, they always try to whitewash it. Always.
Always. But then they'll make a ton of money if Trump wins. So either way, they're good.
Yeah, no, we're screwed. And even if Booby somehow pulls out any kind of miracle, and it's not going to be, but but look, from hanging Chads to the smart tech server in 2004, 2008, everybody wanted it, and the CIA apparently wanted it too. So everybody got on board because they got the corporate media to sell you Obama.
Citibank, that was Citibank that wanted
Citibank
it.
And CIA too, I think.
Goldman Sachs, yeah.
He implemented a lot of things in it. We're not going to look backward. We're only going to look forward. And yeah,
You're kind of good at that, Andy.
Well, thank you. And then and of course Hillary Clinton with Pokemon go to the polls and rigging that whole primary and still losing to a clown show game show host and then of course 2020, which is what caused me and it seems like you too to say enough is enough and start doing media and becoming part of the media because they suck so badly. I can do this better. I can do this better.
Yeah.
I've been watching these clowns do this forever. Like, and,
I can do it from my trailer park. Like,
and I'm talking
I can
about
do a
corporate
better
media,
job than you.
not the independents. And I was inspired by the independents. The people like Convo Couch, the people like Richard Medhurst, the people like Lee Camp that have like these. I feel the same way. I say a lot of the same stuff. There's no reason that we can't at least get out there and scream and add to that list of voices that are out there screaming this stuff, because there aren't enough of us.
100%.
So
No, there isn't enough.
So the Israeli army, of course, claimed that they were targeting Hamas. But of course, as UNHCR points out, the mere presence of one commander or even several combatants does not render an entire neighborhood a military objective. Yes, collateral damage and civilian targets are a violation of international law to not make every attempt possible to avoid civilian deaths and military objectives. Yeah, they would say the same thing about Vladimir Putin, I'm sure. What are you about Putin?
Yeah, what about Putin?
How many kids has Putin? How many kids have died in Ukraine versus died in Gaza in the last 8 months?
Putin is very thoughtful about civilian casualties, and we've witnessed that multiple times in the decisions that he's made since 2014, when the UN and the CIA decided to go in there and park on his doorstep and coup Ukraine. So yeah, I don't buy that, and I think that most Americans are so busy trying to stay alive that they don't have time to go get the information that we have, right? And I mean, I didn't have it years ago. The only reason I have it now is because I got involved in politics and went, whoa, what the hell is going on? So, independent media is so important because we get the truth out there.
And so few of us still, around, so few of the people around us are still plugged into independent media. Most of them are still watching Netflix. They're still watching the corporate news shows.
I'm fucking guilty. I watch Netflix.
And Netflix, Amazon. I mean, look, they're propagandizing you with their content just as much. They're doing propaganda.
Yeah.
They're selling capitalism and they're selling the 9 to 5 and the family structure and all the crap that we're trying to break away from, because, look, we have very different lives now than we did even 20 years ago. Everybody's got to work all the time, pretty much nonstop.
All the time. Everybody in the house. Everybody in the house. Not one person can go to work or two people. Every person has to be working full time to take care of themselves.
And the binge watching of shows is, again, it's bread and circuses. They've been trying to keep us distracted. Too busy working. And then once you're busy working, once you're done working, between taking care of the kids or grandkids and trying to find 5 minutes to relax for yourselves. Exactly. You want to turn it off. But the thing is the minute, and I love, this is Jesse Jet red pilled. I try to sit down with my wife, the wife, all I see is propaganda and the silly sitcom banter. And red pilled is the anthem that we close the show with. And I love that he played that in New York City. I think it was almost at my request. Like he had to close it with that. Like, you have to let New York City's audience and Do Dissidence's audience hear the passion and the anger that comes out of Red Pill, and know that it came 4 years ago, and we still feel that way and worse, and it hasn't gotten any better. Like
worse. You're right. I mean, we had some hope in 2016, right? We had Bernie Sanders and we had all these shills like Pramila Jayapal and the AOC that were hyping us up that we were going to go inside that Democratic Party and we were going to start seeing some change that was going to affect the working class, whether it be Medicare for all or, there's so many things that we were fighting for. And look at us now. Oh my gosh. Did you see that Bowman rally this week in New York? They have 200 people, 300 people there.
Shout out.
The energy's gone.
INN's Big Mad Crab had showed up there and filmed with Do Dissidents, and Jose got the 200, 300 people.
I've got the video of Jose getting turned out. I'm going to run it tomorrow morning. So you guys join me because I got a whole section on this tomorrow. Yeah, they wouldn't let Jose Vega into the AOC Bernie Sanders Jamal Bowman rally.
Right. And we've been seeing
shit.
Yeah, well, they knew that they've seen him how many times troll AOC. They knew she was coming. I saw the video where he's trying to talk to the guy. The guy just straight up stonewalling him and not even answering. And he knows he's on camera.
Yeah.
He knows
I've got
he's
the video.
On camera.
We're gonna play
it. What's he gonna do? Sarah P also says that she was burning her bunker, working on the bunker, still working on our bunker too, but We are Bernie. Or Bernie was the compromise. Like, we keep telling you that, and nobody wants to hear that Bernie was the compromise. We knew he was shit to begin with, but all right, he was at least saying the right stuff. They weren't going to go along with him, and they were going to fight him worse than they fought Trump. Can you imagine? Could you imagine what would have happened had Bernie taken over?
Nothing done.
Not only got nothing done, they would have blamed him for everything that went wrong.
Everything.
And
he would have been Carter.
There never would have gotten another lefty for a generation. You know, I think we still have a shot of look, there's nobody coming to save us but us. I don't think there's a dynamic leader that's emerging from the left. Nope. They've splintered us, and my feeling is that anybody that emerges either gets co-opted, murdered, or they figure out a way to smear them and marginalize them with the corporate media and with the general public, so that they don't have to actually deal with them. So,
well, they want a civil war. I feel like they're setting the stage. That's what January 6th was. Look at these crazy insurrectionists, and now they're strumming it again. You know, and if somehow they manage to get the mob to fill out 350 million ballots for Biden, because that's what the mob does, and he wins, then are the Trumpers going to take arms and freak out, right? That's what the Democrats want. I mean, you see De Niro out there freaking out every day. He's never going to leave. He's going to be a dictator. But I want to just remind... They're going to put us in camps. I just want to remind everybody, this is class warfare. Don't fight against your neighbor. You know, they don't understand what's going on. It's like fighting, you know, somebody who is disabled. Like, if they don't understand and you do understand, it's imperative on you to make them understand when we get to that point. You know what I'm saying? I will not fight my neighbors. I will not fight a civil war for these morons. I just will not.
No, please don't. By all means, you know, they're not even sending their own kids to die for you. So why should you send your kids to potentially go get maimed for them? So according to the analysis, as we said, in 87% of Israel's attacks, over 5 people have been killed, while 10 or more have been killed in over 60% of their attacks. This proportion alone suggests widespread war crimes, the report said. Meanwhile, the very use of those huge bombs in those densely populated areas could amount to wartime violations. Right? I want to see these motherfuckers brought up at The Hague. We're never going to see it. We're never going to see it. And I want to see Bush brought up to The Hague. I want to see Obama brought up at The Hague. I want to see every single one of them dragged in front for war crimes. But we know what's going to happen. The Hague Act in 2003, Bush said they'll bomb The Hague before they go put anybody before them.
Yeah, right. He wasn't joking either.
No, he wasn't. Yeah. And they reinforced it, and everybody shit their pants this year. And it was like, guys, we did this 20 years ago. What are we doing? Everything that's old is new again, I guess. Right?
Yeah, I guess.
So the launching of such bombs in this way could indicate direct attacks on civilians. Could? I mean, the hedging in this report is so gross. Meanwhile, at the back of the Hall of Justice, injustice, Israeli officials have been clear about their objectives. As the report points out, IOF officials, Major General Hassan Alian, referred to Hamas and the residents of Gaza as quote-unquote human beasts and told them, you wanted hell, you will get hell for breaking out of the prison that we put you in. The report quoted another IOF spokesperson saying at the beginning of Israel's current incursion into Gaza that they're focused on what causes maximum damage. Yeah.
We're not shocked. We know that. Yeah.
Yeah. So here's the thing. They're trying to raise at Truth Out $13,000. They're a nonprofit. It's tax deductible. If you have any money, these guys do excellent work. That I got to say that, you know, they are Indie Media Award honorees. So we'll clean this out. They do get a little shit-libby. I will be the first to admit they have some shit-lib tendencies. It happens.
Shit-libbiness.
It happens. There are some shit-lib tendencies to Truth Out. They are one of the few outlets that are out there that regularly puts out content that is in favor of, again, countering and questioning Democrats from the left. They also champion and say, AOC strongly urges Biden administration to blah, blah, blah. That is the article that I hate the worst, is the strong urging or the deep requesting. And like, they have a whole series of language to try to describe this begging. Basically, it's begging for scraps, right? Oh yes, thank you, Gregory Walker. He's quoting Red Pilled. Sometimes I like it better being blind. He's quoting Jesse's beginning of Red Pilled.
Right, exactly. It is. Since we were talking about this, Israel airstruck UNRWA's headquarters in Gaza today and fucking leveled it. How is that not a war crime?
It is.
It is. It's for the whole world to see. It's clear to see, and yet, no, not a war crime.
It's going to have to be BRICS and China, and it's going to have to be...
Well, and what does that look like, Indy? What is that? Does that look like a conflict first, and then what's left of the populations will come together, and they'll have some kind of tribunal for the acts that were done, say, after whatever a conflict or war is going to happen? I mean,
what's going to be look? We need
what's going to be left?
We need to have a tribunal now about what's happening, so that we put it in the record that this is what they did, and just like Nuremberg, we need another Nuremberg trials here because of what's been happening here now over the course of 8 months, where they're saying they're going to continue doing this into 2025 already. We're going to be voting for a president that's going to be funding this, that's going to be furthering this. Yeah. If Seth Rich never got murdered, can you imagine? Oh my goodness, Gregory.
Oh my gosh, Seth Rich. You guys don't even get me started on Seth Rich. I was thinking the anniversary of that was sometime very recently. And normally I always bring it up. I was a delegate just like Seth was in 2016 for Bernie Sanders. And we knew instantly when we found out. I'll never forget where I was when I heard it come across the radio that a DNC staffer who handled data had been executed, basically execution style on, in DC. And of course, oh no, it's a robbery and all the crazy stuff that we've heard, but nobody really, talks about the sacrifice that Seth Rich made to give us the truth of what the Democratic Party was doing. We knew it from the inside. We could see it. We knew what they were doing to us, but we finally had the proof, right? And then Julian Assange, we just keep fighting for Assange. Of course, his hearing, his appeal to not be extradited is going to be the July 9th and 10th.
Right.
So we'll be watching the royal courts for that.
Yep. We'll probably be covering that live here on INN. We covered the last one live, and as long as we can pipe into somebody's
Amber was
feed.
there.
Amber did go.
Amber went. She went.
It was so
I know.
awesome.
How crazy.
Yeah. And Sleepy Josh, and we hooked up some kind of thing. I know he was helping her kind of do some stuff.
Yeah.
That was great.
Sleepy helps Amber do all kinds of stuff behind the scenes.
Shout out to Sleepy.
We appreciate it.
Last Monday, we did an INN for Palestine group live stream. Me with Himbo, Big Bad Crab, and an Angel in the afternoon, Angel Rivera. And we talked about a couple of the news stories that were happening that day. And we were like, we could literally do this every day or every week and have a live stream talking about this. We also talked about the video. I think you brought it to Trailer Park Pundit of the woman who got kicked out of, or who got blocked by her rabbi on social media.
Yes, I brought that to Beauty and the Boomer the other night. Yeah.
Yep. So we talked about that on this stream. So if you want to check that out on INN, you can certainly check that out. I have one more story. One more story. Then I wasn't sure if I wanted to bring the next one. It's super depressing. But why is it hard to know how many independent voters there are? This is the story I was super excited to do with you because we are both vigilantly independent and anti-duopoly and anti-corporate. So we remember, of course, what happened here. Voters waiting in line with masks in Wisconsin in November of 2020. But in March, they sent everybody to the polls to vote in a rigged primary with COVID, and then threatened Bernie and said that if you don't drop out, we're going to keep making everybody go to the polls knowing that you're going to lose. And then
you're
blame
gonna kill people.
Yep, you're going to murder people.
Yeah.
So this is from The Conversation.
Okay.
And it says, modern U.S. politics has largely been viewed through the lens of a two-party power structure, Democrats and Republicans. However, this may be changing. Increasingly, the media, pollsters, pundits, and campaigns themselves are focusing on independent voters saying they will be crucial to the outcome of the 2024 presidential election. Fuck around and find out, I remember saying a long time ago, right? So,
Yep.
But even among political experts, there remains a good deal of disagreement on how many of these voters there are out there, right? It's possible that some voters identify as independent, but really just have weaker political preferences than party diehards, while still maintaining some loyalty to one party or the other. Yeah, I don't really care, but I'm still going to vote Democrat in the end. You know, and there's a lot of people like that.
Yeah.
Right? And some independent voters change their political identification from one cycle to another. I mean, look, I did. I joined the Democratic Party to vote for Bernie. Independent my whole life. Joined the Democratic Party to vote for Bernie, bailed on him. As soon as 2020 was over. That makes it hard to tell who an independent voter is and how many of them exist. Well, sort of. But most of what political researchers like this guy know about what independence comes from survey data. But here's part of the problem, that though it might seem simple to look at state records of voter registrations, it's not very useful, because many states require voters to declare a party affiliation when they register, though they can also declare that they have no affiliation. And that's what I had to do in New Jersey, is no affiliation. And of course, some states require voters to join a major party to be allowed to vote in their primaries. Like,
That's the way our state is. You have to declare on the outside of your ballot, outside of the envelope, if you are voting Republican or Democrat. How insane is that? Like, how is that not illegal?
Right? Swing state voters matter, Anthony. Yes. Swing state voter.
Get those swing staters.
Yes. But other states don't require you to join a party. And some, like in this person's home state of Arizona, prevent people who register as independents from voting in presidential primaries, but let them vote in primaries from other races so long as they request a ballot from one of the parties. Just more hoops and make it more difficult to vote and to participate in the process. Thanks a lot, guys. Right? These different rules mean that the numbers from state records are almost certainly not reflective of the true number of people who are independent voters. And they also aren't reliable indicators of how people might actually vote. So researchers do have two good sources that have tracked political affiliation over a long period of time, which is Gallup surveys. And Gallup is incredibly biased and infiltrated in corporate run.
No.
And American National Election Studies, which is a collaboration of universities, which of course is also heavily biased and skewed. The number of independents these surveys report, however, depends on how the surveyors classify independents, but they may not take into account how specific voters' political preferences change over time. It's like, so here's how Gallup frames the whole conversation and how you get your duopoly framed. The Gallup question dates back: do you consider yourself a Republican, a Democrat, or an independent? The voters' answer is about their present situation and may be different from whatever affiliation they may have declared when registering to vote. So it may be on a state log that's different from what they answer there. And it may also be different from how they voted in the past. Again, we voted Democrat for Bernie and joined the poll for Bernie. But according to Gallup...
I can't say that.
Well, you were a delegate. So
I know, but I've always voted Democrat. I had voted Democrat my whole entire life up until 2016 when I started voting Green Party.
You were a good little Democrat. Okay. Well,
I towed the family line. I mean, FDR, he saved us, like I was taught that growing up. The Democrats are the ones that help the workers, that help the poor, that want to do stuff. Republicans are just selfish and greedy, and all they care about is money, right? I mean, that's kind of what we're fed as Americans.
Well, it's funny because I was raised by a Republican in a Republican household, and I kind of found I hung out with workers because we were, very well. I went to school with plenty of people that didn't have money and, learned very quickly, that there were a lot more people that were out there that didn't than had money. So,
right.
And their voice was a lot louder, and we needed to take care of them first. And look, that's the people that know that the minute that the people start storming the gates, it's all over for the wealthy. That's what they have the cops for, to protect them.
Oh yeah.
And property.
Israel trained.
That's right. And aligned. and now Cop City and Cop City train now too. But now
Yeah,
again,
they're training Cop City cops. Yeah.
according to Gallup, and again, they're corporate. They want to skew the duopoly. Political independents constituted the largest political bloc of voters in 2023, with an annual average of 43% of American voters claiming that label. All right. It's been more than 30 years.
It's more than that. Yeah.
Oh, it's way more than that, but it's been 30 years.
I'm not buying 43.
But now, what happened in March, 49% of U.S. adults of March last year, 49%, more than the two parties combined. That was the first time that had ever happened. All right. So, and I remember covering that on How Did We Miss That? Yeah. I was so excited that that independents were really starting to make headway. So here's the scholarly classification of voters as independent, dates back to the work of Angus Campbell, and that's publishing in 1960, The American Voter, right? The surveys that these researchers analyzed for the book have been considered by many to be the gold standard in the field, but we don't really see too much of that with a 7-way poll, right? Since 1952, researchers and pollsters have typically asked a follow-up question to those who identify as independents to determine whether respondents prefer one party over the other if they had to vote.
Are you really?
Like they're skewing you to duopoly no matter what. They have to give you one of those two. Just choose Trump or Biden. Trump is Biden. Finkel and Einhorn. I mean, it's literally the Finkel and Einhorn.
You're an independent, but you're a Democratic independent, aren't you? No, you're a Republican.
I'm a left-leaning independent. No, I'm to the left of everybody on the Democratic. That's right. I'm to the left.
I'm so far left, I've wound up right. I don't know how
that's the fishhook. You're admitting to the fishhook theory? No, come on. The only people that do that is the centrists. The centrists fishhook right to the fascists because
they do.
Scratch a liberal and a fascist bleeds. We know this. But most independents reported they lean toward either Democrats or Republicans, go figure, because the polling skews them that way. But initially, these surveys asked respondents to identify themselves on a 3-option scale, but for independents, they probe more deeply, right? Strong Democrat, strong Republican, with 5 options in between. Yeah. Again, just so that you can't see them as a whole block, but it has to be kind of. What about strong within the Democratic Party? You have people that lean to the corporate side and to the left side, but they never break up the Democrats like that. But they have to balkanize independents because it makes them not look as strong and as large a number.
Yeah.
Right. But how many lean even? In the 1990s, the idea of nuance came under scholarly scrutiny. Why? Because of, thanks to Ross Perot, the myth of the independent voter argued that there were really only the 3 main categories and that most people who said they were independent really preferred one party or the other. I wonder if that was paid for by the duopoly.
Come on. You really are just one or the other. You can't be anything else.
It's amazing. When those independents who report a lean toward party are counted as supporters of that party, the overall proportion of independents is then small, about 10% of the total electorate. Again, you're talking to 2 of them right here. No matter what, we don't lean either way. We lean, fuck you. That's where we lean.
We're 10% of the electorate.
Right? And that level has remained roughly constant since the 1950s because they keep pushing people toward the duopoly. About 2/3
Well,
of
and I'm not
independents-
buying this. I'm
Right?
not buying that. I'm not buying that it hasn't changed since the 1950s. We saw it on the rise in 2016, and definitely it's rose since then because so many are done with the duopoly and throwing their hands in the air. I mean, I see it every day, more and more people that are saying no. So, I mean, if you don't call yourself an independent, some people call themselves libertarian, some people call themselves Green Party. I mean, at the end of the day, are those categorized as the independents in this article?
If you're not Democrat or Republican, you're considered an independent. Yep. That's right. So, however, other scholars, including this writer, disagrees with the assertion that most independents are really leaning toward a party. We think there's more volatility in their voter patterns when tracked over time, but what they're saying is that people start and stop being independent because they'll join the party. Some researchers have argued that independents' responses to questions, rather than leaning toward Democrat or Republican, are significantly affected by short-term factors related to whatever campaign is happening at the time, such as candidates and issues, right? So in 2016, you might have said, I'm a Bernie guy and I'm independent, but I Democrats a little bit. Now, fuck the duopoly, they're done, right?
Yeah.
So this is one reason that it would be useful if surveys asked all respondents and not just independents how closely they identified, like I said, balkanize the Republicans, balkanize the Democrats, and put everybody on equal footing. But they certainly don't want to do that. We know why they do it, right? So here, this guy's analyzing data of political identification and voting choices and what their methodology is. They found evidence that a sizable number of independents move in and out of independent status from one election to another. And they argue that there's a need to look at long-term voting behavior of specific voters. Okay, but what does that mean? While there's not a consensus on how many independent voters there are, their numbers do seem to be growing. And I think that that's pretty obvious out there, like you said.
Yeah, it's very obvious.
The increase may require scholars and media outlets and the public to shift their traditional two-party view of American politics. Oh, God, I hope so. But, of course, we know why there's not a third party, because the donors don't want to write 3 checks. Until we get rid of private financing of elections, until we get rid of Citizens United, until we get rid of every one of our elected officials getting bought off, this isn't going to change. We're still going to be fed the duopoly and shoved back into one of these 2 corporate fucking duopoly parties, uniparty things. It's possible that the long-standing survey questions are no longer, or maybe never were, actually good at identifying political views of independent voters. Yes, because they're duopolists. They don't understand the mindset of an independent that hates you. Right. We hate you. We abhor you and loathe you. So yeah, that makes a lot of sense why you wouldn't understand that. This is the article. It's Thom Riley in the conversation was the writer. He is the professor co-director for the Center of an Independent and Sustainable Democracy at Arizona State University School of Public Affairs.
Arizona's got some of the most messed up elections. I mean, okay, there's quite a few states that can take that title, right? Most screwed up elections, but Arizona, they work very hard to make sure that the voters' voices are not heard. We've seen that over and over.
Closing polling places in poorer areas, Sheriff Joe Arpaio doing all kinds of nonsense and then running for
Sheriff
office
Joe.
himself. Remember? He may even be back this cycle for all we know. You know, they're now talking about putting armed guards or armed police at the polling locations to try to intimidate voters from potentially showing. I don't know who would be intimidated by somebody with a gun at a polling place. You're just there to vote.
They have messed with our elections so badly in Washington State. When Bernie ran the first time, when Obama ran, we had we had caucuses, right, for the primary.
Right.
So caucuses are really hard to suppress your voice because literally you're coming together with a group of your neighbors, whoever lives, a 5-block radius, and you're making your choice. So they worked really hard in 2020 and now to make sure that we don't have the caucus in Washington State, because what happened is we networked. We all met each other at the local school and said, hey, you support Bernie? You want universal health care too? You want a living fucking wage? You want affordable housing? I want those things too. Let's get together and let's start working and organizing. And we did. And, I hosted or I chaired a meeting every Friday in my local town where 50 or 60 people would show up every Friday afternoon. And this started in March of 2016. And we still hold those meetings till today. And yeah, we don't have the numbers that we used to. And people have come and gone and we all work on different issues. But that happened because of that caucus, because we came together and were able to see each other, talk to each other. And the Democrats didn't want that. And then so they went to this primary system here in Washington State. And I know it's modeled after a couple other states, I think Nevada and a couple of the other blue states. But now they're doing the Zoom conventions, right? Because you're supposed to get your delegates and then you go to the next level, which is your county convention. And then you have the state convention and then you have the DNC, right? So if they can get us all into a Zoom meeting like they did in 2020 and then just mute us, they don't have to hear our voices anymore. And that worked so well for them in 2020. Hey, they're going to do it again in 2024. I feel bad that I'm not going to the DNC this year, going to Chicago because I was there for Philly. But I feel like it's a waste of money and time. All it is so commercial. I mean, it's just a big coronation party for the Democratic Party. And yeah, I want to be there on the street to protest, but honestly, it's going to be full of infiltrators. There's going to be so many damn cops. You're not going to be allowed to, pop off. There's nothing that's going to happen that they're not prepared for. They had a freaking prison ready for us in Philly, some old abandoned prison to put us in if we got too rowdy. All they did was kettle us and mislead us the whole entire convention last time. We spent thousands of dollars to go and to travel, and I just every day I'm like, oh, I want to go, but I know I can't support the system by showing up there, by giving the Democrats that.
Milwaukee 2020. Remember what they did there again? The virtual convention.
God. They gave the virtual convention.
Okay, that actually, I was still kind of almost. They almost could have had. I was really mad about the Bernie stuff. I was pretty much checked out, and I was laughing at them at this point. But the way that the way they shut out AOC and gave her 30 seconds to talk at the whole thing, and
progressives were dangerous at that point.
Oh, they were, and that's when, and they wouldn't even give TYT credentials to cover the thing live, and I thought that was hilarious, and that was pretty much the end of it. I was like, they're never ever going to give us anything, and we're never going to be able to take it, and if you do, you have to compromise and join that corporate suck, the suck of a party. And you have to, they don't change, you change. And that's, we've seen it with Cori Bush. We've seen it with Pramila Jayapal. We've seen it to a point with Rashida Tlaib. She's been holding out, but that's only because all the Zionists can't stand her for being a Palestinian there.
Exactly.
Okay. Yeah. We've seen it with Jamal Bowman. Every single one of them goes in and gets compromised and sells out. It makes me scared of what, with Jose taking on Richie Torres, is he going to be able to stave this off? We've seen incredibly strong people go there, and it scares me. It worries me.
Tim Canova, look at how hard they took Tim Canova down.
I like Jose as a guy, as a person. I've met him 3 times, and I wish him all the best. But if he goes there and he becomes a politician, I'm going to hold him with as much contempt as all the other 535 motherfuckers that's sitting there. You bet. Yeah. All right. You just joined the club.
But we see what happens to those people that accidentally get through, like AOC, right? I mean, they make them useless. She has no power unless she's shelling for them. She has no power with us because we see through her. So I don't see Jose being that way, though. He has been amazing at calling out these politicians. I mean, before he was even running, right?
Well, as an activist, I love him as an activist, all right? But as a politician, showing up at Jamal Bowman's district to say, don't vote for Latimer because Bowman's, not going to, because AIPAC doesn't want Bowman. Yeah, I get what he's saying and where he's going.
Is that what he was doing?
Yeah, and that ain't it, guy. I love you, but... Yeah, Aom is
just because shit is on the ballot doesn't mean you got to vote for poop.
And he knows that.
I know.
It was a whole thing. Yeah, Anna Mayer says, "Wait, there was a prison set up for protesters in Philadelphia. Can you expand on that?"
Yeah, so there was an old abandoned prison in Philadelphia that they were looking to outfit in case things got out of control and they had hundreds of protesters to hold. But what actually happened was they would arrest us and then put us on the bus. I was with a pretty rowdy group that a couple of us got arrested. I didn't, but they just sit you on a bus in a zip tie for 8 hours. No bathroom, no water. It's 110 degrees on the bus. I mean, it was so hot in Philly that year. And at the end of the day, they don't even press charges on you. They've rendered you useless. You've been, stuck on a bus for 8 hours. You're exhausted. You're tired. They cut you loose at the end of the night and send you on your way. That's how they dealt with the protesters in 2016.
Yeah. All right.
Unless you were Jill Stein, then you got arrested and held for hours. Remember they did that to Jill Stein?
She's been arrested several times, and it almost once is a pattern. It's turning into more of a pattern, and I don't like seeing it with her. She's good. Look, my worry with the whole thing is what happened. There's this question about money that was raised after 2016, and letting
you
the
know who
party
raised
fall
that
apart.
question? Who raised that question, Indy? That was a hit piece that the Democrats put out there about
that
her
right?
campaign financing. Yes, and most people don't realize that. And I'm not here to defend Jill Stein. If you watch my show, you know I'll rank on her all the time. I do.
Yep.
But that in particular story was a plant story by the DNC.
Because she raised a bunch of money to do the recounts, and
Count,
then
the
they
recount.
didn't do the recounts. So there was like, what
Right.
happened to the money? And there was but that's it. It doesn't surprise me. It was a Democratic Party thing. But then, there was worry that, like Howie Hawkins, as you get, that neoliberal infiltration to the Green Party. And we found out, by the way, from Bree Joy Gray the other day, that apparently 5% is worth $20 million in federal funding, which doesn't go very far. I mean, AIPAC said they were going to spend how much against $100 million just to defeat the squad alone. So
$17,000 an hour is what AIPAC is spending right now to buy our government. $17,000 an hour.
Silly. I have a couple of quick things I wanted to go through, so I'm going to do this around the world. Check this out. I don't know if you'll hear it. Hopefully you do.
Who are these people?
Yay, okay. So this is just like kind of what's going on at the network, and we got a couple things just kind of wrap up before we head out. If anybody missed it, I was on Hardlands on Wednesday morning.
Hardlands?
Yeah, it was Friday morning, sorry. With Kit, and Matt Weinglass also was on afterwards. But this is the 1 hour, 45-minute conversation we had about the Amazon labor union and their deal with the Teamsters. And I was raging. I tried. There is so much. I actually might write a book about this.
Right.
Because there is so much. I started to write down kind of a timeline for Kit and layout. And it's like, I wrote down 25 different chapters in a timeline. Like, these could each be chapters in a book easily. I don't know if I'm going to do
Write
it.
a book.
It's a lot of time. I've never written a book before.
I know. I mean, either. And you know what? I saved every planner, everything to go from an opiate addict in the trailer park to out on the campaign trail for Bernie Sanders and to be where I'm sitting today. I have an amazing story to tell, but you're right. I've never wrote a book. And then what about getting like a ghostwriter? I thought about like, is there, how effective is that?
Oh,
maybe
boy.
a ghostwriter.
Yeah. So we've got that. I actually listened back to it this morning. I'm like, I felt good about that conversation. That's something that you could actually play for your normie friends. Like, that is not a quote unquote lefty thing. This is about workers. This is about fighting the system, and they're all pissed off at their bosses too. They're going to hear some of this stuff. They don't hear about what Amazon workers go through. That, a couple of people are like, oh, you're just a hater against Chris. Well, I think that part of what Amazon tried to do, or the Amazon labor union, and what corporate media did, was make him the face so that you couldn't attack him. Or if you did kind of criticize him, well, then you're just a hater. And no, I have substantive questions and criticism of what he's doing and where he's going and how he's representing the people at the union. So by all means, check that out. That's for this. This week at INN, last night we had Pro Wrestling Talk at 8 and Stohimbo streaming. Tonight, of course, we've got How Do We Miss That? I think we might do an INN for Palestine. I don't know tomorrow. Reef's computer. So by the way, Reef's computer's on the fritz. Shout out to Reef.
Poor Reef.
So we're hoping that his computer will be back this week for INN News. I think we may do American Tradition Tuesday. So this is all kind of to be determined. But Tuesday night American Tradition with Jesse, because next week he is traveling to Florida to see family and to see Cynic. So if we don't do one this week, we won't get one for another 2 weeks. So then INN News Wednesday night with Reef and Colin, assuming Reef's computer is back and working. Thursday night, we'll get Politically Homeless with Crab and Himbo. And then I'm not even sure about Tara on Friday. Tara didn't do a show last week. I don't know what she's going to do this week. We'll be ready for her if she has stuff for us. Angel's great on Friday nights. I don't know if you watch Angel in the afternoon. And then
I love Angel. And I got to say, I bring a lot of Crab's content to my show, if you haven't noticed.
I do. And Crab does some stuff with Hotspot too. So shout out to Get the Hotspot. And then Friday night, 10:30, kind of our way of cutting loose and ending the week. We do the American Tradition Clip Show. I love doing that show. It's a little bit of work to put together, but it's so worth it. Right. And then we get to hang out and chat. And there's 15, 20, 25 of us. I call it all meat, no filler, because it's just songs. It's not him tuning up or us talking in between. It's literally song, spoken word, song. And this week we did 20 songs.
Wow.
In about an hour and a half. And it's a nice, chill, relaxing stream. And even Jesse pops in the chat if he could stay awake.
Jesse.
And then, of course, tomorrow at, what is it, 1 o'clock Eastern? Is that 10 a.m. or 11 a.m.?
10 a.m.
10 a.m. your time, 1 p.m. Eastern. We've got Shanda doing Trailer Park Pundit. She's got her Hello Monday stream is already up on Rumble. You can follow Trailer Park Pundit up over on YouTube as well as over on Rumble. And so let me go and give that one a like right now.
Yeah, come join. And if I give wrenches to my entire chat. So if I've seen you more than twice in my chat, I give you a wrench. Like, I am really community driven. Like, a lot of people in the chat, I want people to know each other. I want people to network. And that's what we've done for 4 years. It's amazing. This chat, you see them. They're so dedicated on Saturday nights. They all come in for Beauty and the Boomer, and I just love it. And I wanted to carry over to other shows, that camaraderie that we have in the chat.
Yeah. Like Anna says, it's never enough. But I want to play the little trailer you have for the show.
Thanks.
Here we go.
Is there anybody listening?
Nice.
Is there anyone that sees what's going on?
Are you doing the face renders too, like Oz?
Yes.
Well, yeah.
These are amazing.
They do it all. We do it all. We do refaces. We do the face renderings. I mean, they're doing amazing work with DaVinci. Tomorrow, I have a very special closer. Oz made it for us, so you'll have to join me. We're going to hit it hard tomorrow because, I always do music in the opening and music at the end. We're rolling out with some Metallica to start and ending with some Guns N' Roses. So totally join me.
So it's going to be 80s and 90s metal with Shanda. Before we head out, please again support independent media. If you want to support INN, these are the links to do it. These are the people who do. Love you all. Really appreciate you. You all are the best. All right, and yeah, so we did it. We made it through without many frames dropped. And again, I this has been a lot of fun, and I really appreciate you joining me tonight to go through some stories. And
I enjoyed it.
And I'm sure at some point, we'll do some more collabs. I don't know if you saw, if everyone saw, but we did a collab about with me and Reef and Shanda and Oz about like kind of the independent streaming and some of the inside baseball and the tech of going through that. And that was a lot of fun with Linda as well.
It was.
So check that out on the Roar Media channel. I actually have that on my Substack as well. If you look for the guest appearances, I have all of those kind of linked out. But yeah, check out Indie Media Today, of course. That's indiemediatoday.com. That's where we publish all the clips. And that's our newsletter. You get that right to your inbox, and you can go to it on the Substack app. And but yeah, support independent media because we need it more than ever. And I'll let Shanda say goodnight for the rest of us, and I'll take us out.
Thanks for having me, and you're going to have to come over and stop by the trailer park one of these days. And everybody, I hope you have an amazing week, the start of this week, and I will see you in the morning.
Night, everybody.
I think I liked it better being blind, when I couldn't read between the lines, and when I couldn't see the cracks in the structure that lay bare before me the whole time. I think I liked it better back when I suspended disbelief and swallowed pride. I thought I knew the difference in the red from the blue, but they both bleed us so dry. They both bleed us so dry.
My favorite songs don't hit the same way. I get to the end of a 4-minute track and I'm only looking back thinking, what did they actually say?